Chapter 2, Production Possibility Curves. Now we're going to see if the US and Japan should trade. So again, you're going to need to have your practice problem set out with your Japan and US graphs showing wheat in computers. Before we get started, let's do some definitions. Trade includes both imports and exports. Exports are things that we make here in our country, they're produced domestically, and they're sold to foreign countries. We make them and then export them. In a trade situation, we are going to export one particular product to a country, and they in turn are going to export one of their products to us. We call that an import. So, imports are goods that are produced in a foreign country and brought into our country to buy here domestically. Every time a trade occurs, both countries will import and export. So, from the US's perspective, we are going to export a good to Japan, and then we will import something from Japan. And from Japan's point of view, they will export something to us and import something from us. Now, go ahead and take a look at the graphs that are on your practice problem set. Remember, we're going to start at point B. In the last question, question 3, we shifted the amount of wheat and computers that we were going to make, and we're going to start at point B. We're going to do practice problem question number 4 right on top of those graphs. Again, if you want to draw the answer to question 4 in a different colored pen, you're welcome to do that. But remember, the US is starting at 3,400 tons of wheat and 160 computers. Japan is starting with only 240 computers. In question number 4, I have set up a example of import and export trade values. So let's say that the US decides to export 700 tons of wheat to Japan and import from Japan 110 computers. I need you to start at point B, and then you're going to either add or subtract the amount of wheat and computers from point B to determine how much we'll get after the trade. And we're assuming that 700 tons of wheat in exchange for 110 computers works for both countries. So start at point B, add or subtract these values depending upon if it is imported or exported, and then answer the questions below. How much of each good is now being consumed in the United States? And how much of the good is now being consumed in Japan? Go ahead and pause the video and work out this practice problem on your practice problem page. All right, so let's look at your US graph. If we started with 3,400 tons of wheat and we're going to export 700 tons to Japan, how much wheat is the US going to be left with after we give 700 tons to Japan? Hopefully you did your math correct. We're going to end up with 2,700 tons of wheat. And remember, we started with 160 computers, but we're going to import 110 from Japan. So you have to add that number. 110 plus 160 equals 270. So on your US graph, you need to mark that point, which is 2,700 and 270. And then on your Japan graph, remember they only started with 240 computers. They gave us 110. So if you subtract 110 from 240, you get 130 computers. And then they imported from the United States 700 tons of wheat. So on your Japan graph, you need to mark the point, which is 700 wheat and 130 computers. If you did something correct, something really interesting should happen to your PPF graphs. So for the United States, if we graph 2,700 and 270, our point is outside or to the right of the PPF curve. And what do we know about points outside the PPF curve? These are points that are not possible. We could not make this combination of wheat and computers on our own without adding more resources or workers. So this is really beneficial to us. We're getting more products that we couldn't make on our own. The same thing will happen with your Japan graph. At 700, 130, their point C is also outside their PPF. They could not make this possible combination without adding more resources. So in this situation, this particular trade is beneficial for both countries.